Okay, I'm getting the You're Live button. So hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Lindsay Barnt. I'm the Director of Student Transitions here at the College of New Jersey. And thank you so much for joining me tonight on, I think we're at number 6 of these OST, Office of Student Transitions, caffeine chats, Sunday evenings with mostly the parents, but students obviously could watch and join as well. So welcome if you are especially to all of our new families who might be joining us for the first time tonight. And for those of you who have stuck with me here for the last couple of weeks, welcome back. So hope all of you are doing well. If you're logged in, I'm starting to see some of the messages. So somebody just give me a quick hello that you can hear me, and I know that we're all good to go. Originally, what a difference a week makes, right? We were sitting here last week and lots of unanswered questions still. And then the president's email to the students on Monday and to the faculty and staff. It was funny. So for those of you who've been following us for me, at least for the last couple of weeks, you knew that I was off on Monday for my birthday. And then I had this mysterious kind of meeting pop up on my calendar. And by my supervisor, just very, very briefly, like within an hour before the president's email went out. So I found out with pretty much the rest of the world that we were moving to the remote only virtual learning for the fall semester. And I hope, and I wanted to start off the chat tonight just by saying that I really hope that you had an opportunity, if you were able to go to one of the sessions that Dr. Foster hosted. She hosted 2 that were specific to faculty and staff. And then she hosted 2 that were geared more specifically towards our students, both our incoming and our current students, as well as our families. I went to all 4 because I wanted to hear and help be able to answer some questions that you might have tonight. But if you didn't, I know that they recorded all 4 of them, and they will all be on the fall 2020 website here, I believe sometime this week. I just checked before we logged on tonight and didn't see them posted anywhere, but I'm sure within the coming days it'll be posted there, so that if you didn't get a chance to listen live, I really would encourage you to go back and take a look at those, because she really was thoughtful and really explained the multiple reasons. I think there were 5 for why she ultimately had to make the decision for us to go remote. And then she also answered a lot of the questions that were submitted tonight and some other information. So here again, I'm just going to throw it into the chat. Is just that fall 2020 website. If you haven't bookmarked that yet, I would absolutely keep it or bookmark it and then keep that, because all of the up-to-date information that has been all summer, but now so with this change, has been posted on there. And I think that it's really helpful. So I would anticipate, again, they were recorded. They're not up there yet. I would imagine in the next couple of days they're going to. Also, so this week's chat, I was supposed to have on a special guest from our Director of Residential Education to talk about the move-in process and all the things. And then that became a bit of a moot point, at least right now in this space and time. So it's just me tonight. You get me for the full hour. Thank you for all of you who submitted questions. We had over 80 questions that were submitted. So I'm going to go through, and I kind of I read every single one, organized them, and we're going to touch on almost all of them that we can get through in this next hour. But it does mean that I have like one eyeball on the chat and one eyeball on you. So I'm not going to be able to be as responsive in real time with answering your questions in the chat. So I'll try to finish a couple minutes early so I can go back and scroll through and see if we have missed any of the questions for that. Okay, so we have a really robust kind of schedule here. You did not disappoint me in not submitting questions or filling the time. So thank you for doing that. But it was very helpful because it was able to inform how I can best utilize the hour to be answering your questions now and doing that. So also just make sure you get your cups ready. I'm back to the big cup tonight because I'm actually a little bit under the weather. So hope you have your caffeine, whether it's decaf or regular, and we're going to get cooking here. So I decided, let me go back to my schedule real quick. So what I wanted to do was start off with some academic related questions, and that's where we're going to spend a chunk of the time to start off with. All right, so we're going to start with the academic stuff, and then we're going to move into kind of miscellaneous items, questions about the tuition, insurance waivers. We got a couple questions about that, ID cards, housing application for the spring, those types of things. So I'm going to talk about that next. And then I'm going to save the end of the session to talk about online orientation going forward, welcome week, and then the potential for these on-campus opportunities in October. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about all those things at the end. All right. So starting off with academics, I received a handful of questions first about the fall class schedule and whether they're finalized at this time. So I would say at this point, I would assume that it's finalized and it's set in stone. I don't believe there should be any other major changes to your student schedule at this point. Obviously, if there's any concerns or you have individual specific questions for your student's schedule, your student obviously does, then I would just encourage them to reach out to the person that they've been communicating with all summer long. And just a reminder for any of my new families that are on tonight, our faculty are 10-month employees, so they don't work in July and August. So typically for our new students with the pre-registration process and answering any questions they have about their fall schedule, it's typically handled by program assistants and department chairs in our schools because those are 12-month employees. So whoever is listed under your student's department or academic school to contact if they have any outstanding questions about the types of courses in their actual course schedule, I would encourage them to reach out there, but I would assume at this point that most schedules are going to be finalized. I had a couple questions about if a student goes to part-time, and one particular question specifically was that if they decide to go part-time, are they able to drop their seminar program or their FSP, their first seminar program? And what to do about that. So I tend to not try to get too into the weeds of giving out academic advising advice because it's not my area of expertise. I would be hesitant to drop your FSP because that course is really considered foundational for the rest of the courses that are to come. That course covers critical thinking and analysis, writing skills, problem solving, and really, even though it's based on interest, the components that your students are going to be taught in that course, even though it's interest-based, are really applicable to all of the other classes that are going to come from there. And there's a reason that we require those students. It's a graduation requirement, and there's a reason we want them to take that in their first semester. But that being said, for that particular parent, if you're listening tonight, or in general, if you're considering maybe going part-time, and the FSP is potentially a course that you are considering dropping, I would just email liberallearning@tcnj.edu. So I'll throw that really quickly in the comments. It's just liberallearning@tcnj.edu. Again, this would be for FSP specific questions. If you're interested in going potentially part-time and you want some advice for which classes to not take, that would be something, again, that your student should reach out to the person that they've been communicating with all summer for the academic components, for the scheduling and whatnot, to answer those questions. A couple of questions about synchronous versus asynchronous and when the faculty will be deciding that. Great question. I don't know if there is a deadline. So here's what my advice would be to your student. One, I would assume that for right now, every class is synchronous, right? So if your class meets on Mondays and Thursdays from 9 o'clock to 10:15 or whatever the block of time is there, I would assume that your student should be prepared. Like, your student should assume that they're going to get on the computer, on the Zoom, go into the course, click on the link, and be seen in person for the course at 9 o'clock on that Monday and Thursday. Is there a chance, and I think what will typically happen is that first week of class, the syllabus will be sent out. And that syllabus, and the faculty have been instructed to do this, is to provide even more, that's kind of your Bible for your class. It's got everything in there. But, tests, exams, grading policies, all those types of things. But they're going to be adding more information. The faculty will be over the next couple of weeks to that syllabus to talk about, are you meeting synchronously or asynchronously? How will the exam piece work, etc. So all of that's going to go into the syllabus. Your student's going to get that the first week of class. But for now, I would imagine, okay, just based on kind of my experience in the graduate program, I would imagine that there are probably some faculty members out there who will not be doing synchronous meetings every single week, right? But I would assume, if I were the student, that that's going to be the case. And then if you don't, and you have some that are asynchronous, you'll be able to factor that into your planning for the fall semester. But I think that that's a really important takeaway. So I think the faculty are still deciding over the next couple of weeks. This information will be communicated very clearly by the faculty in the classes the first week, which again, they start on the week of August 24th. And the syllabus will have a lot more detail about expectations for when they will be meeting at the same time versus working independently on their own through certain modules. I have a handful of questions about what can students do to best prepare for the online classes. So I was trying to figure out how this could be the most helpful for you. So I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to show you. So last week I went into detail for several minutes at the end about the pros and cons for kind of demoing what types of classes can look like, but I've decided that I'm going to the extent that I can, there's certain sections I'm not going to be able to show you just from privacy purposes, but I'm going to show you and do a screen share of what Canvas looks like, and I'm going to show you one or two of my grad classes just to give you an idea. And again, so going back, if you weren't on the call last week or if you had to hop off a bit early, Canvas is, some professors and some faculty members are going to utilize all the gadgets in Canvas to distribute the content for their class. Others are, Canvas could look very, very bare. And I'm going to give you an example of both. Both of these classes were excellent classes. I got the same amount of information out of it, the same type of class engagement, thoughtful conversation. I learned a ton. But one professor used it in a more asynchronous capacity, and it was a lot more kind of robust looking. And then the other one was a bit more bare bones, at least to the untrained eye. But really, that person relied on more synchronous sessions, and we ended up getting a lot out of it too. So let me see if I've done this correctly. Never a dull moment in the virtual space. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to do the entire screen. Let me see if I can do it. Oh, here we go. Nope, this is good. All right, so here we go. So this is what, when you log into my Canvas course here, this is the dashboard, and this is the main screen that you're going to see. Does everybody see that okay? Let me pop back and see. Can somebody give me a thumbs up? Okay, good. Okay, I went back. It looks like you're seeing it. So you're seeing on my screen that, I'm the teacher or the professor for all of the online orientation modules, so you'll see those first. But then the other two published courses here that were my summer classes I took as a graduate student. So I took Strategic Human Resources Management this summer, as well as the Management Practicum. So all of the courses that are currently enrolled are going to fall on here. So your student will see one of these 3 online orientations, and they're also going to see, for my first year students or my freshman level transfer students, you will see the SRP 099, which is the summer reading program course that's created for them to be able to submit their assignment. If you go down here, and again, you'll see some things here on the side, some icons and whatnot. I'm going to go to courses. The first course that I'm going to show you is actually from a previous semester. So if you click on this all courses button here, so again, all the published courses are the ones that are live for the summer or that are live right now, so the fall course there. If you click on all courses, this is going to go back and do all of the courses that I've ever been enrolled in, or I've utilized, or I've been the instructor for. So I'm going to scroll down here to Psychology of Management. So this was a course I took in the spring 2020 semester. So really great example of a course that we met asynchronously. I think we only met Saturdays. I don't even think we did weekly meetups in the synchronous space, right? It was almost completely asynchronous. And then we used our Saturday classes every other week as an opportunity to touch base and have some of the more live discussion. So if you're looking on the left-hand side here, every class starts with a home page. The announcements page is how faculty will communicate with students. So these are announcements that go to everybody in the section of the course, and that will go directly to their TCNJ email address. Assignments, that is just a really, there's a couple different ways that you can utilize Canvas in order to potentially stay organized, but this will be a list of all the assignments that were initially, that were due for the course. So if I scroll down, you're going to see this course had a whole bunch, we had units, we had a discussion post for every unit, we had reaction papers for the units that were submitted, but it's a nice little clear kind of piece here for the assignments. Discussion boards are, I think, probably going to be really heavily utilized by some of the departments for the fall semester. So this is the opportunity where you're engaging in that in-class discussion in the virtual space. So for my psychology course in the spring semester, we had a discussion post for every single unit. So you'll see here, and a lot of times, for this example here, there were 100 replies and 42 unread. I don't know. I read all of those, so I'm not really sure why it's popping up. But it will oftentimes some of my faculty would say, okay, you have to do a post, but then it's your responsibility as a part of your grade to comment on 2 other peers' posts, right? So that was how we were facilitating really engaging kind of content and dialogue there. Your syllabus, again, I mentioned that already, but that's going to be a really important thing. The syllabuses are always, the syllabi is always included on Canvas, but then if you scroll down here, this was a really helpful tool too. This was just a straight up chronological deadline of all of my assignments. I think that one of the tips is really your student is just going to have to figure out how they need to get organized. Is that a physical planner? Oh, where's mine? I just ordered a new one. I love planners. So is it a physical planner, or do you have an electronic planner with calendars? Getting that syllabus and really fine-tooth comb, going through that first week, highlighting all of your due dates, putting those assignments in. It's something I would be telling your students to do anyway, even if they were on campus. Studying on campus, but really even more so important in the virtual space as well. So the syllabus will always be posted here. My media, and again, this is only one example. There's probably about, oh gosh, I don't know, a dozen to 2 dozen different options on the left-hand side that could pop up in different types of tools that within Canvas that one professor may choose to use over another. So for example, you know, I'm in the getting my MBA, so it's a business school program, but maybe the engineering or the science students are going to use different tools that might be able to answer some of those questions or facilitate the content in a more engaging or meaningful way. The modules tab is probably a really important one. So this is where it looks a bit different. I'm going to walk you through, and again, this was a more asynchronous based class. You moved at your own pace. You had it was like a week and a half. You had to complete all these assignments within the week and a half, and then I had a paper and then a week and a half. So again, just kind of getting a feel for what the faculty member and the professor is looking for in terms of timeline and those things. They did a really nice job. By the end of the unit, these you should be able to, and those were all of the things we were supposed to be able to retain or pull back on or have learned throughout the course of that particular unit. And then a lot of times they'll embed articles, photos. The next slide, I believe, was a really good example, and I picked this unit to showcase it. They would do kind of mini lessons, mini lectures. So this was a pre-recorded, it was a little less than 20 minutes. This was what essentially I'd be doing in class if we had an in-person piece. So it was a video, they were walking through slides. I remember like I would sit here and get my pen and paper out and I'd stop it if I wanted to make down a note or something of that nature. So they were really, because we weren't meeting synchronously, they did a really nice job at the asynchronous piece. And then you just kind of worked your way through the modules and you were going through at your own pace. And obviously at the start of the semester, you're trying to kind of get a feel for how long certain articles will take. For me, I thought was a really good tip. Like if it was a video or if it was a number, if it was an article, I would always write down next to it in my planner how long the video was or the number of pages that the article was. I'm a bit of a slow reader, so I know it takes me a little bit more time to go through and review them. So that was just really helpful in terms of time management, which I think is the other really important piece here to help your student, kind of navigate college in general at TCNJ, but also, that switch potentially from high school to college for my first year students or for my transfer students from your previous institution here. The time management tools are going to be really important. So this was just an example. And again, this was a form because psychology course, we did a lot of assessments and fun things like that. So this was just, and then here's Zoom. So Zoom will show up and then the link directly to meet synchronously when we did meet face-to-face in real time, all of those were there. So obviously it's not here now, but your date, your topic, your ID, all I had to do was log into Canvas, click on the Zoom link and go right in, and then I would be right there ready to go for class. So this was an example of more of an asynchronous setup, a move at your own pace. We met every other Saturday in the fall semester virtually as a result of COVID. And then the other course I'm going to share with you is actually, so it's the opposite. So of course I took this summer, it's the management practicum. This course we met every single Thursday night and then one Saturday a month. So we were synchronous the entire time. You'll even see on the left-hand side that some of the tools look a bit different. Your syllabus will always be there. Modules will be there. People that will have a list of the rosters. If your student is involved in a class that does a lot of group work and you're breaking up into classes or into groups, the listing and the students will be included in there as well, who's in your group or not. Discussions, assignments. So a lot of particulars, but then a couple of other new ones here, right? So there is a chat function, a media library. So it just depends again on the tools that your professor, that particular faculty member is choosing to use. And I'll just jump down really quickly to the module, I think module 8. So I think a nice thing too, and some faculty do this and some don't. So it's a tool that when they do use it, I'm very grateful for because it helps me. This little complete all items. So I can go through and check off when I've done things and when I haven't. So obviously I didn't finish all of my meetings for module 8 or I forgot to check it off, but it's just kind of a nice checkpoint to stay organized and stay on task. But they would kind of come through and he listed, here's module 8, here are all the readings and the videos that you have to watch watch for this week, discussion posts, we had graded assignments, and then he would, at the afterwards, he would always post a PDF of all the slides from the synchronous class. So even though he went through these when we were live in person, he would go through and post those slides afterwards just to kind of call back if you wanted to ever go back and look at the slides and things of that nature. So I just was hopefully this was helpful, and we just removed the Zoom. Hopefully that was helpful just to kind of give you an idea of what your students are going to be looking at. And again, big caveat. They were both fantastic classes. One of them utilized more tools and had more content really into the meat of the course. Other classes, and actually I probably should have pulled up my HR class this semester as well, although it's technically, they're both still live for the summer classes. But HR, there was no, like, barely, like, each module didn't have any text. It was just like links to supplemental readings. But the syllabus was the really important thing, because that had all of the chapters of the books, it had the videos. And so I would follow the syllabus, and then every week she would remind us, you know, and that class met, that class didn't meet every week this summer. That class met, I would say, probably once every 2 or 3 weeks. And that ended up being, well, I think they've all been my favorite classes. But it just goes to show you, you know, the synchronous, the asynchronous, the faculty member is, you know, our faculty are still trying to figure out the best way to deliver all of this information that makes sense in the virtual space. But there's a lot of tools in Canvas. And to answer your question, your original question about some of the tips, the time management piece is huge, and especially for my first year students, because you're not going to be in class a whole heck of a lot, right? It's not like you're going to be sitting at your computer in school for 8 hours a day like you were in high school, right? You're going to be an hour and a half here, or, you know, maybe some days you have more back-to-back classes, and other days you may not have any. So for one of the things for me is that, and again, I'm a part-time graduate student. I only take 2 classes, but I'm a full-time parent to 2 young kids in the middle of all of this, and I work full-time. So for me, blocking off time was really important. So I blocked off time every day that was going to be for, you know, specific for grad school stuff, and then I would go through and organize my assignments for both of my classes so that I knew what I needed to work on to prioritize. So some of those are some of the tips, I think, but hopefully you found some of just kind of looking through those courses helpful to give you an idea of what your student's going to be seeing. Again, with the big caveat that that's going to vary based on the school, and it's going to vary from course to course, depending on which they're enrolled in the fall semester. And then again, I mentioned this last week, but we had over 600 faculty members who did additional Canvas training modules just to learn, you know, okay, well, I know I'm going to want to do this, and I do it in person, but how can I convert that and have that be a meaningful deliverable for the students in the virtual space? So I'm really optimistic at the quality of how they're delivering that content in Canvas, more so than in previous years. Okay, let me go back really quickly. I think there was, I'm gonna stop the share for that. Oh, and the last point about what the students can do to best prepare, I think this is a really important one. They can't be afraid to email their faculty and go to virtual office hours. Every faculty member is going to have virtual office hours for your student to go to. They are human, and we get it. And I feel like a lot of times with new students, in particular my first years, but sometimes my transfer students as well, they're just afraid, like there's this barrier that shows up and they don't feel comfortable communicating with their faculty member. We're human. You know, the beginning of June, I was out of power, as we all were last week, but beginning of June, we had some storms come through, and I was out of power for like 4 days. So I was able to make the class, right, the in-person class, but I needed an extension on this assignment deadline because I just wasn't able to get to it. And I just shot her a quick email, and she was like, oh gosh, no problem. I'm actually going to extend the deadline another day or 2 just for everybody who may have been out with the storm and whatnot. So they're so reasonable. And if you have good communication, or if you get the syllabus and your students going through the syllabus and they're like, ugh, I don't, you know, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? You know, don't be afraid to reach out to the faculty. They're just so incredibly responsive and helpful. And I feel like a lot of new students, it might take some time for them to feel that way, but especially this semester, since we're going to be remote, that would be an important kind of hurdle to get over sooner rather than later on that. Some information there. All right, oodles of questions about the textbooks. So I emailed the bookstore earlier today before I even looked at the questions, and I said, I know I'm going to get a whole bunch about the bookstore. So can you send me some bullet points? So she did. So here we go. Bookstore is reopening on not tomorrow, but the following Monday. So Monday, August 17th. Their hours will be 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and they'll be 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. So there will have some in-person hours for you to be able to pick up your books at that point. They can be purchased in store starting on the 17th, or you can purchase them online. The ability to order them online is available now, so your student can go in and do that. Your student has two ways to order textbooks. They can go through Pause, or they can go through the actual Barnes & Noble website. That's how I choose to do it because it's a bit easier. I'll just go in, I put my class ID, my section number and I list all 2 classes. So your student would be putting in a few classes, and then you hit click, and then it will literally generate the entire list of both required and optional texts that your student will need for the fall semester. And you can go ahead and order them from there. They're doing free shipping on any orders over $49.99. The rentals and ebooks will be available for the fall semester as always. Yes, so you can rent books, and they do some price matching as well. So I know there's some restrictions on that, but all of the price matching information is on their website. Refunds for books need to be mailed or brought back with receipt by 8/29 for full refund. I don't know if that was for, did you mean that for summer classes? I know I have to return my books. They're still sitting on my desk here at home. Okay, with proof of course change, students can get the full refund through September 25th if the books are in their original condition. So if your student decides to do a course change, they have up until September 25th to return the books, and the book orders can take up to 72 hours to process, so order early. So those were the takeaways from her. I'm going to do 1 or 2 follow-ups for her on that, but I'm going to talk a bit about online orientation, but there will be a textbook page in the online orientation module opening up this week that will go into a bit more detail. We just encourage you to check out the Barnes & Noble website. They're very helpful and responsive. I order my books from grad school through them just because it's a bit easier. You will have the option of doing it in person or online with the free shipping. And the last question that a lot of people had about the textbooks in the bookstore was pertaining to when to order. Yeah, so this is the tough one, right? So they obviously are like, yeah, it takes 3 days and you don't want to get, super behind, so order sooner rather than later. I just went on last week and my textbooks from the 1 class weren't available yet. Like the faculty member hadn't notified the bookstore of which texts he or she wanted to include. And I didn't want to have to place like multiple orders. I hear from my student staff, my orientation leaders and my Griffins, that a lot of them will wait until the first week, which again, if you have like a super anxious student who wants to have everything ready to go for the first day of class, this might not be a very good option for them. But sometimes the faculty member will lay some insight into the textbooks that they put on the list. Like obviously the required ones tend to be required, but maybe more so for the optional ones, some faculty could give some insight into like, okay, well, this one, this one's really important, or this one not so much, or whatever. So I think the students would tell you from their perspective that I think a lot of them will choose to wait. And I think that other people just want it out of the way and just want to know that when they get to the first day of class, they've got their book ready so that they're not, skipping a beat. And I think that they would order them earlier. So there's no right or wrong answer. I think if your student has a concern about a textbook or any questions like that, and they want to reach out to, well, again, the faculty aren't here for another 2 weeks, so that would be a moot point. Yeah, I think it's just up to their comfort level. I think some people are going to order them now, and I think some people are going to order them the first week of school, and just roll the dice that it's going to maybe take a couple days to get them. But then again, now you have to factor in the shipping unless you're coming to campus to pick them up. So it all just kind of depend on comfort level there. I'm waiting until at least I get all my required textbooks on the page, and this conversation's reminded me that maybe I should check on that tomorrow, because I kind of want to just get them in and over with, but that's just a personal opinion there. So I'm sure that there's probably a few more textbook questions that came in. I'll try to get some links for you here as I'm just kind of scrolling through the chat, but that was it pertaining to the textbooks. We have a host of questions. I was a little surprised by this about library access and students coming to campus to use the library. I gotta be honest, that thought never crossed my mind. So I reached out about an hour ago and I said to my supervisor, I was like, do we have an answer on this? So she wanted me to pass along that obviously the library will be open. They have super limited hours that the library will be open, and they have very strict social distancing guidelines. So while it's open for limited study and research purposes, because obviously that's something that some students may need to come in person to do, it's not going to be conducive to socializing. So if your thought is, or your student's thought is, oh, well, maybe I'll make some friends and we'll go to the library and study on campus or go to class there, not going to be the case. I think there's going to be, that I was told there's just a lot of guidelines, and it's not going to be a scenario where there's going to be socializing in the way that the normal library setting encourages. That said, I know that there are going to be oodles of online resources so that students are still being able to access the library, access books, and access services, and what that will entail. I would anticipate that we're going to be learning more about that within the next week or two, but I know that they've been working on that for quite some time. As President Foster mentioned, this was always a scenario that we were planning for and hoping that we didn't have to enact, and unfortunately that's where we are right now with that. There was a question about the library exams. So I got an email as a student last week about a policy. They're working through exams. If I read it correctly, I believe that they were encouraging faculty whenever possible to have it be open book, the exams be open book, or to have papers or things that are due. Obviously, plagiarizing, none of that stuff. But to the extent that they could maybe facilitate that for their courses, if that's possible, that would be ideal. But they were working through, I guess there's a couple of different options for proctoring. I can just speak on personal experience for me. So I only had, I only had one course that was this semester, actually, my summer course for human resources. That was the only class I've taken where it was a closed book exam that was obviously administered synchronously. So one of our Tuesday night classes was devoted to the exam, and she just put a couple of like placeholders in place. We had like it was 2 parts. So we had only a certain window to do one part, and then we had the second window to do the second part. There were multiple choice that she scattered so that they weren't all in the right order, so that I couldn't text somebody and say, hey, will you have her answer 5? Because their question for number 5 was my question 8 and I didn't know it. So they did some randomizing of the numbers to make sure that the integrity stayed in place. And then for the multiple choice questions, honestly, there were so many and we had such a short period of time that we were all like just trying to get through that. The second exam for that course a couple of weeks ago was open book, and it was more open to not multiple choice, but open-ended responses. So that was my only real experience with it. But again, you're doing what you're doing, and hopefully your students are going to abide by our academic integrity policies. That thought never even crossed my mind to cheat, but obviously there's people out there who do that. So there is some work going in through governance right now to kind of create a more stabilized policy. And that is another area that the faculty members have been instructed to really clearly outline in the syllabus. So that first week, they're going to be really intentional about, obviously, these are the dates and the times for your exams. I've decided it's open book, closed book. If it's closed book, these are the policies that we're going to enact to make sure that the integrity stays there. So more to come in the syllabus for that. And then I would encourage you and your student to reach out if they have questions about how the exams for a particular course are going to be proctored or structured throughout the course of the semester. A quick note about advisors, because I got a handful of questions about that. You're still not assigned. Your student gets assigned that advisor the first week of class. So that advisor piece and pause, which is where they will go to find out who they've been advised or who they've been assigned to, won't be available until the first week, because the faculty are not on contract until like August 23rd. I think we start classes the 24th. 24th. We start classes the 25th. So they start on contract that Monday. Just a quick reminder about advisors. And then there was a question about the extended deadlines for withdrawing with a refund. So I'm going to throw in there a link to the academic calendar. So this is going into the chat now. This is just something that you should have bookmarked anyway. Your students should have bookmarked. It's just all of the general dates on the academic side of the house. It's really helpful for the year. So they extended and pushed the refund back. So basically your student can withdraw with 100% refund now on Tuesday, September 15th, 75% refund if they withdraw by Tuesday, September 22nd, and then a 50% refund if they withdraw by Tuesday, September 29th. So those were all pushed back at least a week, possibly 2. No, more than a week, maybe 2 or 3, as a result of just the situation that we're in right now with the remote learning and with COVID. I think that was it in terms of most of the academic related questions. I wanted to move along to some kind of just more nuts and bolts questions. Bills, we had some questions about when the fall bills are going out. Wednesday, August 12th. So a couple days away from now. Bills will be going out then, adjustments, those types of things. That was from student accounts. Also pertaining to student accounts, the tuition waivers. So will you still need to submit the not tuition waivers. Student health insurance waivers. So yes, your student still needs to, regardless of where they're learning, on campus, off campus, the health insurance is a mandate. It's not required by us, it's required by the state. So your student still needs to submit, if they're choosing to stay on your health insurance, they need to submit that waiver. And if they are choosing to use the college's health insurance, every college student, undergrad, graduate, I got that email as well, received information last week, I believe, about the health and insurance waiver information. So make sure they reference that email, but that's still going to be required regardless of the fact that we're not going to be on campus for the fall semester. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, ID cards. Yeah, great question. Don't have an answer for you on when we're going to get those to the students yet. To be continued. Maybe I'll try to dig that up this week and see if I can get you an answer for our last one next week. And then spring housing. I have no idea yet what's happening with spring housing. I take that back. Not that I don't have an idea of what is happening, just timeline of when your student will start to receive information. I know that the hope is that the good plan that we put in place here, if let's get them back. If we can get them on campus in the spring semester and we can do so safely and hopefully with potentially less restrictions, that would be awesome, based on where the state is with their phases and whatnot. But I know that more information about housing will be available a little bit later on in the fall semester. I would anticipate probably November would be a timeline that your student would be receiving some information about. What does that look like? I don't know if they have to reapply. I don't know if they just have the same room assignment or if there's different room assignments now. I don't know any of that, but more information will be fleshed out, in the next couple of months when we start to turn our attention more towards the spring semester with regards to the logistics for that. Okay, I think that was it for all of my miscellaneous things. Let me go back and just check really quickly. Again, Organization 101, I have all of your themes here. I think we're moving on to now the pieces under my area, which I saved till the end. So online orientation, somebody asked about Module 5 for that. Yes, it was a bit delayed coming out, but Module 5 will be launching sometime this week. It's going to include, again, information about textbooks. It's going to include some information about Welcome Week and some mandatory third-party modules that they have to complete as a new student here at the college. We also do a pre-Welcome Week survey. So just a couple of those formality pieces are going to be there in Module 5. So that's coming this week. Let's talk a little bit about Welcome Week. So I don't remember if I said this last week or not. I thought I did, but then a whole handful of people asked about what the in-person components were going to be for Welcome Week, and that's making me think that maybe I didn't. So Welcome Week is going to be entirely virtual. We are not hosting any in-person Welcome Week activities for this program now this year. So all virtual. That being said, we're also going to add a day back. So originally we had to cut the program down from 5 days to 2.5 days due to the move-in schedule being really staggered, and we needed more time and more days for the students to move on campus. Now that they're not doing so, the program is going to start on Friday. So it'll be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The first 3 days are going to be different types of programming. There will be a couple of mandatory sessions that the students will be required to log on and view. There will be a host of optional activities that they should want to do, but maybe not, depending on work schedules or what they've got going on or whatnot. It will be a bit lighter, and I talked about that in previous weeks. So the content is not, they're not going to get it less. There's not going to be any decrease or removal of programs that are traditionally offered into Welcome Week. We're going to build a robust schedule that is appropriate, because I'm not going to sit there and expect your student to be logging on to session after session after session for hours on end for those 3 days. So we are going to have to remove some programming and save it and repurpose it for the first 4 to 6 weeks of the semester. All right, so there will be some thinning, some less programming, but there will be some programming options. To be honest, I'm in the process of kind of finishing building that schedule together, just because of where I am in the whole process, but it will be a virtual experience. Those first 3 days are going to have some fun things. We're still going to keep 1 or 2 of the traditions that I'll save for a little bit just till we get the paperwork inked and confirmed, but keeping some of those traditions and having some virtual experiences. So again, those dates are Friday, August 21st, Saturday, August 22nd, Sunday, August 23rd. My hope is to have the schedule for your students so that they know which times the sessions are being hosted by middle middle to end of this week. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is the timeline I'm shooting for. I'm in meetings almost all day tomorrow and Tuesday to finalize the sessions, the virtual space sessions and what we're offering. And I have an email that I'm going to send out to the students, almost like a transition times newsletter, I'll say Thursday, but it'll be the end of the week, no later than Friday, that will have the dates and the times for the sessions for those 3 days so they can plan appropriately. But it will not be all day. This is obviously everybody who participates, all new students, whether you're a first year student, a provisional student, or a transfer student coming in, there's going to be programming throughout the course of, for all three of those groups. Also, Welcome Week is always for everybody, whether you're living on campus, you're a residential student, or whether you're commuting. So that's the plan for Welcome Week for those 3 days. Monday is Academic Welcome Day. So I can confirm that that is also going to be entirely virtual, and it will stay completely almost exactly the way it normally would. So you're going to have Convocation, which is just such a really nice event. So fun fact, and this is for my class of 2024, my first year students and my provisional students. My transfer students don't traditionally attend Convocation, but for the class of 2024, you're only together twice, ever, as a whole big old group. Once, day before you start classes at Convocation, and the second time on the last day of class or the day after the last day of class is when you are graduating. So it's just a really nice event. The tradition will still be there. The president it's a really lovely ceremony. And that'll kick things off on this is now Monday, August 24th. So Convocation, there's going to be a dean's welcome. So which is your students' formal introduction to their particular school at the College of New Jersey, followed by department welcomes. So your more formal introduction to your department. So most of them have been communicating all summer with the chair, but we get into a little bit more formality at the department welcomes. For my School of Education students, you will have two. So you will go to a department welcome for your content area and then for your education component. And in the afternoon, the students are still going to compete will still be participating in their summer reading discussions. So they have these assignments that have been due up until Sunday the 23rd for the summer reading program. And then what happens is that we have faculty and staff across campus who opt in to be facilitators for the summer read, and they have just it's like a 70-minute, 75-minute session, and just a really robust conversation about the book and some themes and whatnot from that nature. So that will be in the afternoon. So all of those pieces that are normally for what we consider our academic welcome day are staying in place, and they're just going to be delivered in a virtual space. So that's kind of Welcome Week right now in a nutshell for now, and we'll go from there. So the 21st to the 24th, and then they start classes on Tuesday the 25th. So schedule coming later this week and more details there. And then again, just a really big caveat for two things. One, for Academic Welcome Day, again, that's first year students, so class of 2024 only. And my second reminder for that is that we're going to be looking at what we couldn't fit into those 4 days that traditionally goes in there. How do we bring that to the students in a much more, a little bit later on in the first 4 to 6 weeks of the semester. So that being said, let's talk a little bit about what the semester is going to look like. So your student is going to get an email from my office every single week. I don't know how long it's going to take. Probably through at least October, maybe the entire fall semester. They're going to get an OST weekly email from me every week that is going to list all of the activities that are activities and sessions that are going to be hosted that week in the virtual space. So I'll give you an example of what some of these include. First, any student organization or related things. Now, I don't list out every student organization meeting or meetup, but for example, the involvement fair is coming up. The involvement fair will virtual involvement fair will actually be the second day of class. So it's going to be earlier this year by a week or two. Again, just kind of recognizing that we want to really start to have our new students connect with other current students and start to build their communities here at the college, even if we have to do that in the virtual space. So the student involvement fair information will be on there. We have student elections the first couple weeks of the semester, so information about that will typically go out. So some general broader events that are being hosted. And again, in this case, in the virtual space, but I will promote those in my weekly email. I also do a host of academic programs that might be available in the virtual space. So I don't know 100% what that will look like depending on what's being moved online versus what isn't. But if there were academic activities, we do like our community learning day, first or second week of September, and that information will be communicated to your student. All of our workshops with the Center for Student Success, tutoring information, anything that traditionally is happening on campus that has been moved to the virtual space, I'm going to promote to your student and encourage them to go to. So they're going to get an email from me every week with that information, and hopefully that will be helpful in starting to connect them to resources and to each other on campus, because I know that that was a concern for several of you who emailed as well. The other piece I still have to flush out here is I will be keeping staff on for the first time ever. So I have a group of 7 or 8 students that mentor specifically our transfer students, and they're year-round employees for my office, but I have never kept on orientation leaders to work primarily with our first-year students. And as soon as all of this started happening, I said to myself, we need to do that. I need to find money in the budget to make sure that we are continuing to, my office spearheading some content and session creation for the new students. So a lot of times with these weekly emails, it would just be me, I'm just promoting it, right? So other offices are hosting these info sessions and these workshops and these really great opportunities to connect. But I wasn't driving a lot of the content. You know, in a normal year, my office starts to kind of fade a little bit into the background with the exception of these weekly emails, because they are starting to make these connections. But this year, I thought that it was really important that my office play a much more intentional role in doing that. So some of the items that we're not covering in sessions that we're not covering during the actual welcome week days that we still want to, because they were in the program normally, my orientation leaders and my Griffins will be facilitating for the students in that point. You know, we're just starting to kind of brainstorm what does this group need? Like, what do our new students need, and how are they kind of doing? So more to come on that, but I just overarching takeaway there is that the programming for my office will continue. And then along that vein, the last thing I wanted to touch on really briefly pertaining to all that were these opportunities that the president mentioned in her campus-wide email and in all of the Zoom sessions that she hosted about on-campus opportunities in the fall semester for the new students to potentially come back. So that is a big, you know, the big question will be, can we get to phase 3, and what will the restrictions look like? But my takeaway from that email and from conversations with some others who were in the room was that if there's any chance that we could, if we get to open up a little bit and we can start to bring students to campus in super small groups, but give them a day on campus. So I'm in my brain, I'm kind of envisioning this as like a spend a day at TCNJ, right? They can come to campus in super small groups. We can do some icebreakers. We can have them connect with the president or with cabinet level officials just to get a welcome to the college. They could tour campus again. I mean, I don't know when the last time y'all were on campus. I have to go back this week, but it'll be my first time since March 18th that I will be physically on campus. I miss it. So, you know, just even navigating the physical space again, so that ideally, hopefully when they come back in the spring semester, they know where they're going. Be able to grab some food, but to be able to connect with some of their peers in an in-person capacity. If there is any chance that we can do that, and I'm really looking at like October as the time frame. And again, a lot of that's outside of our control, just based on how the virus progresses, the stage 2 versus, or the phase 2 versus phase 3 with that. But if there's a chance that I can get your student on campus in October, we're going to do it, and we're gonna make that a priority. So I will be saving some funds that were typically input for Welcome Week for those experiences in October. The other thing that I have is an opportunity here, which I told my supervisor I would like to explore. If your students are coming back, I always host, and now it's significantly smaller, but I always run a winter, it's not a welcome week, it's 2 or 3 days. I call it winter orientation program, because we have about 125 to 150 incoming students who start in the spring semester. And those are primarily, a majority are our transfer students that are transferring mid-year. So in the event that if we can get the new students back on campus in January, I'd also like to reserve some funds to see if I can enhance that program. So it would not be, again, a full-blown Welcome Week experience in January, but if we could do some programming, some opportunities for them to get together in January, they move in, maybe they have a couple days to do that before the upper class students return. So similar to what we would do in August, I would like to try to make that an opportunity for them as well. So I just want to communicate to you that your students are not forgotten. The class of 2024 and the fall transfer 2020 cohort, you will be your students will be top of my mind all year. And the more that we understand how this virus is going to progress, what our limitations are, hopefully we'll be going in a better direction here. But the moment that we have some opportunity to get them to campus, to be connecting in person, my office will be at the forefront from helping guide that conversation and making those connections happen. And I just want you to know that, I understand that this has just been such an incredibly difficult year. So if there's some light and some joy that I can bring from my office through programming, once we're able to see each other in person, then you trust me that I'm going to make that happen. So I just want you as a parent to know that. So that is the big stuff that I have. Let me scroll back here for, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm ending a bit early. Let me scroll back here for a minute. Let me just go back and see. Again, I mentioned it's just me tonight, so I didn't have an opportunity to go through and do all of I wasn't able to view Zoom, but let me see what other questions came up. And again, so questions about the library. Yep, we covered that. It will be, again, I don't know what that's going to look like open in the virtual space, but I know there's going to be more information on how to access its resources and the librarians and whatnot in due time. Okay, let's see here. Oh, question about the micro fridge. So I don't believe you need to cancel the micro fridge, but I don't 100% know on that. So I'm pretty sure that because they're a third-party vendor and because we don't have anybody moving in, that those, when the housing contracts were kind of canceled, so was the micro fridge. But let me see if I can get an answer for you on that, and I'll try to follow up with you there. Oh, there you go. Reimburse automatically. See, you all are so great. Okay, let's see here. Are professors required to use Canvas rather than their own websites? Kathy, great question. I don't know that they're required to, but I think everybody does. Maybe it's possible that they're using website, but again, as I went through the demo and I showed you, the tools in Canvas are more extensive than any website's going to provide. So I have not personally had a course that was not utilized through Canvas. Again, varying degrees to which Canvas was utilized, but I don't know of any faculty member who's not using that. Is Zoom used as a part of Canvas? Yes, so I covered that. Let's see here. Yep. Go. Oh, you guys are so good at answering each other's questions. It's so helpful. Will the students be given an overview how to use this prior to each class starting? I don't know if they do like a Canvas 101. That's a great question. I'm just going to kind of make a note for that because their online orientation will be continuing into the fall semester for the first time. And this is not, their online orientation is not graded. And there's no graduation requirement. It's not a letter grade. It's not even pass fail. What happens is just really nice touch base for campus resources and just having information in one spot. I'll give you an example. Every new student has to complete academic integrity modules at the start of their semester, and we'll put those into online orientation. So we facilitate some stuff through there. But then it's also just resources that they can come back to throughout the fall semester. So I'll look into seeing if there's, I'm sure, knowing TC&J, that there are some Canvas tutorials and things of that nature that maybe I could create a page in the online orientation that would support that so that they can play around with it. It's very user-friendly. It did not take me very long to figure it out, but even just some small tips, like I liked to rename my classes, like MGTGT was 650. I didn't know that was HR versus my management practicum course. So I like to name them just so it keeps me a little bit more organized. So those types of tips, I'm sure that there's tutorials for, but I'll see about looking into that and creating that for the students. I think that could be very helpful. Okay. Let's see. All right, we talked about the textbooks, which was good. Somebody was talking about my huge cup of coffee again. Barnes & Noble link, we talked about that. Very good. Access codes for the ebooks. Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't had a course yet that had access codes for that. So essentially for some of the ebooks, you'll have to purchase them and then you get an access code to be able to access them online. I would imagine the bookstore has some more information about that. I did have a course, some professors will do this. They created what's called a course pack. So for my one course, my innovation course I took in the fall semester, he created, he selected like 7 or 8 Harvard Business Review articles, and he created those and built those into a course pack. And then the course pack was like $30 or something. And then those were, you know, so instead of a textbook that had everything in binded and kind of hard copy in one, he chose to do this course pack that had what he wanted to draw into discussions and assignments and whatnot. So that was a really fun way to go to. And so they're just getting really creative with how to kind of which resources to utilize, whether it's kind of your old school textbooks versus some of these newer options for some of the students in some majors, at least there. You're still going to have, I feel like I drug around my calculus book all through college. I feel like you're still going to have that one for my math and science students out there. Okay. There was some information about tuition. I don't think I covered that already, but there, the president covered that in detail in the Zooms. So if you go back again to those recordings that should be posted this week to talk a bit about tuition, but the tuition is set. That's the price that it is. And she went through some, I believe that she went through into some detail about why that was the case. So more information there. Do they really need their ID cards for anything if all online? You know, we're in uncharted territory. I would think probably not. Accessing buildings on campus is a big one. And then parking, obviously, in some lots, although the student lots don't have the up and down. So I don't think that's an option or that's a need. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be much for the online, which is why it hasn't been like top priority for me to get an answer to that question. But I still would like to know how we're going to get those to the students, because that is their official kind of ID for the college. So more to come on that. Oh, I can get you the Barnes & Noble link website. Give me a minute and I can do that. Okay, I covered the welcome week dates. Yep, August 21st to the 24th. So it's 4 days now. Just confused. Did you say that there will be flexible times the 21st and 22nd to attend the orientation for Welcome Week? Just making sure my students available as we are out of town. Yeah. So there will be like specific times throughout the day that we'll be hosting sessions. If they're mandatory, I will label that mandatory. Those are the ones that your student needs to prioritize. There will be 3 mandatory sessions over the course of those 3 days for your student. All of the others are technically optional, but I would encourage them to go to as much as they can. I know that some people are just not really feeling it, but I think that especially if your student didn't participate in the orientation groups over the summer, this just really good opportunities to connect, and there's just no reason, you know, not to. So get in there and just jump right in and go to what you can. The advice for the students, I always tell them for the in-person program is just, you're going to get, this is college, this is life in general. You are only going to get out of it what you choose to put in. So if you choose not to engage in some of these online sessions, yeah, I get that it really stinks that have to be online versus in person. But if you're not going to put yourself out there and to choose to participate in those activities, then you could be missing out on something really, really great. So it's going to be up to them what they would like to participate in. But our goal is that we're going to have a couple fun things to do and a couple opportunities to connect with my staff, and then a couple of those mandatory sessions. But those mandatory sessions are really the big ones for that right now. All right, let's see what I got. Possible programming. Lab participation would be on campus. I was under the impression, based on Dr. Foster's Zoom. Yeah, so I think, Kathy, my interpretation for what she was talking about with the lab participation was that there would be a very, very small number of students who, based on research or whatever on the academic side of the house, it was necessary that they physically be in the labs, but that's not carrying over to just any student who is taking a lab science in the fall semester, right? This was a very finite group, and it was, I believe, only upper class students. These were juniors and seniors, a small group that were identified by their faculty members as this person needs to be in the lab to be able to complete whatever it is that they had to do, that there was no workaround for that. But for traditional kind of lab sciences, especially for our first year and sophomore year students, and again, the majority of the upper class students as well, that was that they would not be on campus for the lab component. And I do believe that the president addressed that something about lab fees. And I don't remember what she said about the fees pertaining to the labs, but again, if you watch the Zoom, there's probably some more information there about that. Okay, let's see. I think I'm all the way down to the end. Here, I will go back and just see if there's any other questions, but it seems like so many of you jumped in and helped answer other questions, which was super helpful. I'll just end by saying, thank you so much, because you all have just been such a joy to interact with in a year that was anything but. I think, I kind of got into the summer and just kind of like, oh gosh, what are the students, what are the parents going to be like? There's so many questions, there's so many unknowns. I don't have all the answers or my crystal ball, but you all have just been so appreciative of me, of these chats, of what the information I could give you, when I could give it to you. And in a year when you really could have just been biting my head off and yelling at me the whole time, you haven't. So I just genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, want to say thank you, because we're all, the grace that's being extended and everybody just being patient and understanding that everybody's doing the best that they can. I am just so grateful for your partnership in this. And it's just been really a joy kind of getting to know you, even if it's just virtually through these chats. I think that, once we come out of it, obviously, the silver lining of just the gratitude of not taking for granted being able to see people in person. But I have just been so incredibly thankful for you all. So thank you for what you have been doing, all the ways you've been supporting your student, all the ways you've been supporting me, and how much you've just been so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for you. So thank you. Continue to email studenttransitions@tcnj.edu. I'll throw it in there one more time. I know that we got up to date. I think we were all caught up by the end of last week. So it shouldn't be too bad to get you an answer on some of these things. Hopefully by now too, again, all those furloughs in July with so many of our amazing staff members who had to take time off for furloughs. I hope that they're getting through and getting to the bottom of their responses to some of your questions for all of that. But please continue to keep in touch. We have one more coming up next week, and my special guest is actually the Vice President for Student Affairs. His name's Sean Stallings. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, so I'll get the RSVP email out a bit early with a separate kind of ask a question form, so that if you have any questions for the big man. But obviously Sean's area, my area, falls under student affairs. So many of the support resources on campus fall under him. So general questions and just kind of an outlook of what the fall could look like, he might be able to kind of share some information on that. So he'll be here next week, and then we'll kind of figure out navigating what the fall will look like. And I anticipate that, it just as a heads up, that if we are able to enact our on-campus plan for the spring semester and bring your students back, I foresee some additional caffeine chats in our future in December and January, just to touch base, because I know that all of those questions that you had about on-campus housing and things of that nature are going to creep back up again when we do. So just so you know, I'm not forgetting about your student, but I'm also not forgetting about you as well. So thank you so much. I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. And thank you. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good night.